Hello and welcome to our very first of the season, E3 press conference coverage. This was a pre-E3 day. E3 has not actually started yet Oculus Rift decided that they were going to get out ahead of everybody else on Thursday and show us the actual Oculus Rift. Now this went for about an hour and 20 minutes or so, somewhere in that neighborhood. They showed us a lot of good things. I've got some notes, and we'll kind of go over those notes in a moment. But what Dave and actually, I should say, joining me tonight, of course, is Dave, the Lego Negotiator.
Hello.
There we go. And also, there we go. And also joining us tonight is, of course, Matt, the Principal.
Howdy.
So, lots to talk about. I guess, full disclosure, I put up an article today on the site that's been picked up by a couple outlets, and it's called Oculus Rift has literally shot themselves in their virtual foot already. And lots of polarizing comments, as always, on the internet. Go figure. But yeah, some people got the intention of it, and it's interesting. We'll talk a little bit about why I wrote that when we get through some of these notes. But any first thoughts after looking at all this good stuff that struck you differently than you had figured, or anything like that?
I kind of expected them to spin certain things a little bit differently. Especially with the way they went with a good portion of the whole Xbox part of the presentation. They kind of just said, like, here's your virtual living room. You can play it on your, Xbox.
Okay, all right. Let's start at the beginning so that we get so we get this out of the way. So they decided to kick everything off. They started. They came out and they talked about immersion and the lack of immersion in games today, and then they pointed out. I know they have this tech demo of a dinosaur, but it seemed like they were really pandering to Jurassic World that came out today. Giant dinosaur. And they look, there's a dinosaur on the screen, and oh, it's a flat screen. And so if it crashes through the roof and it looks at the screen and it roars, then you're not going to feel the same way as if you were actually inside that scene in 360 degrees, and you see the dinosaur smash in and make eye contact with you and then scream directly at you. They said you'd probably feel like the urge to run because that's built into our genes. And I thought, okay, you know what? This has always been the biggest problem with virtual reality, is trying to figure out a way to convey the experience to people who've never put a headset on. I'm the only one on the panel, I think, with the exception of Joe, that has actually worn one of these devices. Neither of you have actually put one on yet, correct?
Not the recent stuff, no.
Okay. And so that's going to be the biggest hurdle, is because people have no frame of reference. And so for these companies to start conveying that message in an understandable way, that's going to be key. And so they did this for 15 minutes. They talked about this one example of how immersive it was going to be. And then they brought out the system. And it looks industrial, and it looks sleek. And it's got earphones and a cord coming out of it. It is wired, so it will plug into the back of your PC. And they do allow you to take the earphones off if you want to put your own headset on there. And then they used a 2D screen to simulate what it would look like, which they just told us is bad for a really long time. But then they continued on, and they showed us that there is a camera that sits on your desk so it can track your position. He held the Oculus in one hand. It looks very light. He said it's covered in fabric, and it doesn't press against you even though it's a strap setup, they said it just rests lightly. You put it on like a ball cap. And
you
so
can hold it in one hand.
He can hold it in one hand. And I'm all right with that. You know, they're saying, hey, you're going to experience games. It will deliver the magic of presence in the game. They're saying, hey, we made this with 2 OLED lenses, which I'm all for because I think OLED is fantastic. Custom display and optic system, comfort, low latency, no motion blur. You can adjust the lenses in and out because everybody's field of vision is and how their face is set up is a little bit different. I'm like, okay, that's cool.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
One thing that didn't kind of like they were talking about the adjustment, like because of field of vision and everything like that. What about for eyesight issues? Is it do you just wear your glasses with it, or are you supposed to
wear your glasses with it?
Okay.
And they said that this is their basically the last 2 years of research into making it comfortable enough to wear with your glasses.
Okay.
So
that's one thing I didn't catch in there, and I was just kind of wondering about that because the other way to do it is also just to be able to adjust the distance, which would do the same thing, and then you wouldn't have to wear glasses at all.
Yeah, but they're saying yes, wear your glasses, and it'll still be comfortable in doing so. From there, they said, hey, we've really worked on the frame rate and the refresh on this. There's no motion blur, no pixelization as you're tracking your head around, etc. You have a wide field of view for immersion, and they're using what they call the Constellation Tracking System, which is one small little tower that sits on your desk. The audio speakers on it look inexpensive would be the best way that I could say that. But the software spatializes the sound for 3D. And then they showed that you could easily remove it and put on your own headset, which is great. They said over and over again, you put it on and it disappears. It's not like it's this big heavy thing that's going to weigh down the front of your head. And then he says, oh, we wanted to do the right thing for input, and what makes more sense than using what we've developed over the last 20-plus years of gaming? We're going to include the Microsoft Xbox One controller. And I'm like, okay, great, no problem. And then they said, and they brought, oh, my brain stopped working. They brought
Spectre.
Not Spectre. Yeah, Phil Spector. I'm sorry, you were telling me the right thing. I'm thinking of James Bond, and I thought you were talking about.
I knew. I had a feeling you would do that, but yeah.
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, Phil Spector comes up and he talks about it. He's like, "Hey, we've had this partnership with Oculus for a while now, and remember how we said previously that the Xbox One would stream to all Windows 10 devices, like tablets, computers, PCs, etc." He said, and the Oculus is one of those as well. And the way that they're facilitating, and I immediately was like, holy crap, if Microsoft's figured out a way to take that Xbox One signal and make it immersive, then that's going to be a huge coup, especially if programmers don't have to do anything, if they figured out some way to hack the stream to do this. They said, and then they said, and the way we've done this is through what we call the cinema. And I'm like, wait, the cinema? And so they like, we have a little video to show you. And they show this girl sitting on a couch, and she's wearing the Oculus on the right side, and on the left side, you can see what she's seeing, and she's sitting on a couch in a virtual room with a large TV 10 feet away from her. And that's how they are going to stream the games. And I have to say, I didn't really think about the technology part till later. They're not even streaming that to the Rift. They're streaming that to a Windows 10 PC, which is then outputting it to the Rift.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not even a direct stream. It is a extra hop. So I have to wonder what that's going to do for latency, etc. Well, anyways, when it ended, I literally just was like, during the middle of it, because this was directly in contradiction of the last 20 minutes that they spent building up, saying you need full immersion and watching it on a flat screen is horrible. And now it was watching it on a flat screen, and every little movement of your head adjusted your field of vision because your head would tilt in the. It was like madness, and somebody laughed afterwards. And he's like, oh, are you guys laughing because she crashed? No, we're laughing because you're idiots. This is like the exact opposite of what you just said was important. Well, now, granted, this is Microsoft talking.
Do you know what the worst part is about this? It was so that we're talking about it now as just like a horrible misstep, and it could have been a huge plus if they just spun it a certain way. All they had to do business-wise is sit there and say, like, hey, this is the scenario. You're living in a one-bedroom efficiency, or you're living in a loft in New York and an efficiency. You have no space for a big TV, but you want to enjoy that Xbox. And you have the money for a big TV, but you can't put your big TV in there. You can take that money, you can buy a new PC and an Oculus rig, and then you could have you don't have to have a 40-inch TV. You don't have to have a 50, a 60. You could have a 100-inch TV sitting in front of you, all from the Oculus.
So this is what surprised me the most about the entire conference. I expected, with the Facebook acquisition, that they would come out and talk about software, games, yes, but also software, entertainment, movies. We got none of that. This is a solely game-centric platform. They showed us the App Store, if you will. I think they're calling it Oculus Home. And it's only for games. There's no mention of media because I think they're terrified of getting into legal negotiations for the right to stream stuff, and then what's the royalty on all that cost, etc. That's the only reason I could see that they didn't announce it today. But what kills me is in that demo, Dave, specifically, they didn't say, hey, you can move the TV closer or farther away to fit your comfort. They didn't do any of that. It would have been better for Microsoft, for Phil Spencer, not Spector. See, you did try and screw me up. For Spencer to come out and simply say, by the way, Xbox One streams to the Rift, so all your current games you can play on the Rift. We'll have more details for you later on this year. Drop mic, and off you go. Leave people speculating rather than show that, because that's the wrong message. That contradicts Oculus's marketing message. And that's what I wrote this article about. The whole point of it was that they have such a big task and a hard sell in front of them unless they can get people to put the device on. And since they can't do that, they literally instantly segmented their market and told a conflicting story. They said, this is bad and this sucks, and by the way, here you go.
Right.
The thing that sucks. And so I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, hopefully it will get better over time and they'll figure out some way to actually make it stream 3D games. But, man, I just would have thought...
I do have to take a step back, though, because you said that, and I'm not going to fault them on this, and you were bringing this up as a fault, that you expected more applications surrounding this, like more... like, just a general kind of use case for all this stuff instead of just focusing on games. The fact is that it still is going to cost about $1,500 basically to get the rig and all
from the ground up, yeah, from the ground up computing. Right.
So you need to involve, I mean, basically they know their audience in that situation, and their audience is the enthusiast PC gamer. They're the ones that are going to plunk down the money on this. They're the ones coming up on a hardware upgrade, and they're going to figure out like what exactly they want to do. So, of course, that's the market you have to target. A $1,500 investment is not something you're going to get out of the average person because they have some new way of streaming Netflix.
But see, that goes back to the point that you were saying, though. Mm-hmm. You were saying that they should have touted it as, hey, you can have this theater experience with the Oculus Rift and your Xbox One. So now I want to...
Oh, yeah, for that particular section. But that was like the more Microsoft section of it. I'm talking about like the overall,
I think it's still, it's one or the other. You can't have both. Either it's going to be a great replacement and we support that kind of stuff, or you're saying the price point matters. Well, technically in that scenario, you're adding the cost of an Xbox One on top of it.
Yeah.
So you're looking at $1,900. for that particular setup.
I'm assuming people already had Xbox. Matt, you've been quiet and dropping off. Are you there?
Apparently not. He may be frozen.
I saw
some. I'm back now.
Oh, okay. There he is. So, Matt, what do you think on all of this?
Well, I wish I know what you guys had said because I've been dropping off the entire conversation. But
just say what you feel.
Yeah, say what you feel about it.
What do I feel? I'm confused. I get the Microsoft plan because obviously it's going to be playing on Microsoft PCs with Windows 10, the streaming of the Xbox One. I get the whole federation thing, but yeah, I don't. I see Dave's argument where they could have gone with you don't need to put a 100-inch TV in your house. You can just put on this headset and you can simulate having a 100-inch TV. Okay, I get that, but it does. It works into. It shouldn't have been in the same conference, and it should have been presented differently because it's like there were two diametrically opposed points there. There's the, hey, you can do all this super cool stuff in a 3D space, and you can control a spaceship by turning your head, and you can walk through the forest and feel the wind in your face. Well, okay, not exactly, and then you can sit in a room which probably already has a TV in it and look at a TV in the room with a thing that's hooked up to the TV, but it's not being on the TV. Yeah, they lost their audience. They lost us. I think with that whole thing just confused the entire point. They lost their message.
I thought the best reaction came from Gith because we were talking about this in chat and I explained and showed him the video where they had the side-by-side action, and I was trying to explain to him that the image on the left was what she was seeing, and he was like, no, she just looked out the car window in the game, and I'm like, no, watch, when she turns her head that way, she turns her head in the virtual room, and he was like, what? No, what? Why? No.
Now, where I could see this be going is if you can have your avatar. So say if you're doing something along the lines of like a share play type thing, and the other avatar is sitting on the couch next to you. This is kind of PlayStation Home done in the way that it really would be useful or maybe usable, right?
They did say, to be fair, that was the goal. So if you're playing co-op with a friend, they can be in your same cinema with you. Or if you're playing multiplayer against someone else, they could be in the room with you too. I don't know necessarily what that really serves if you're playing against someone else other than griefing right there on the spot.
Basically, that's about it. But, so in other words, Mark's all for it.
No.
Grady's all for it.
Grady is all for it. Yes.
Grady's all for it. But I think the cohesion of their message was lost, and that's the part that's kind of baffling for me on this part is. And I thought maybe it's us, right? Because I saw that exchange with Gith, and I came back and I was trying to explain it to my wife, thinking, okay, maybe it's just us. And she just kind of chuckled a little bit and gave me the confused puppy dog face. So I found that video, played that for her, and she just said, well, that's stupid. So it's not just us.
I actually did the same thing. I explained, my girlfriend, and my girlfriend, she's not into geeky stuff. She loves technology when I, hook up stuff and, we have all streaming all over the place, and it's like, oh, you can Chromecast from the iPad. This, I'm like, yes, you can. That stuff's great. But she doesn't actually seek out the stuff. So I explained it to her, and I did it from I was neutral about it. I was just saying hey, what do you think of this? I was like, they just put this out, and then she was just like, well, why would I want to do that? And then she made the joke, and I was very proud of her for this. She goes, wait, so this is the future? I thought they were doing that 10 years ago. This is 3D TV all over again. And I'm like, proud of you on that one.
What drove me nuts was the rest of the conference was great.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately after Spencer, not Spectre, gets off the stage, damn you, Matt, CCP comes up And the CEO talks about how most of the original founders started work in VR 20 years ago. And the company statement, which I wasn't aware of, is to create virtual worlds more meaningful than life. Which, that's a hell of a mission statement. But they're saying with the realization of VR, that's coming more and more true every day. And they showed us the Eve Valkyrie trailer, and if you've not seen it, it is amazing, even though you're watching it on a 2D screen. I get what they're doing, and it looks fantastic. They then started trotting out the developers. They had Insomniac come out and show us a new Tomb Raider on ice game that looks pretty good, and they said this is Rift exclusive, designed from the ground up on the Rift, for the Rift, etc. So that's interesting. And then they talked about other developers. They also announced that they were giving away $10 million in assisted development funds. And then they came out and said, hey, we know that the Xbox is just the start. We have these other things that we've been working on for a long time. They're called Oculus Touch. And they look... What's the word I'm going for? Retarded. That's the word that I'm going for. I'm sorry, it's not politically correct. They don't look good. And let me clarify that. They look fine as a functional controller for what they said they were going to do. The problem with them is that as you are holding them, they have a circle around, almost like, you know how, Matt, in Captain Marvel, you could always see the halo around the negabands.
Right.
That's exactly what it looks like. And so you've got this half moon that goes most of the way around your hands, and you're still wearing the Wiimote strap on top of all of this. It's really weird looking. I get it. I think it could be interesting. Apparently there's sensors in that thing to help recognize when you're pointing or waving or whatever, and it will actually mimic that in the games for you. So that's kind of cool. They had standard buttons, but they also had an actual trigger. It kind of looks like the hilt of a gun crossed with a nunchuck, a Wii nunchuck. So they wanted hand presence, easy manipulation, a low mental load, easy to pick up and use, and the communicative gestures like thumbs up and traditional inputs to support legacy games. They're two controllers, one for each hand, and they're mirror images, which means that doesn't matter if you're left-handed or right-handed, it will still work the same regardless. And they're wireless. So it also has haptic feedback. And then they said that they've been testing all these software components in what they call the toy box, and I'm pretty sure Disney is preparing the lawsuit now. But what they were saying was the most interesting is as they were using the Rift simultaneously, multiple people in different rooms, they would go into the toy box and people would actually begin to feel like they were in the same room. They would forget that they were sitting separate places, separated by distance, and they were there together. Interesting. I'll be interested to see how this plays out. But literally, they talked about the toy box, and showed those controllers, and then that was it. It was a very abrupt ending to the conference, and I was actually a little surprised. I thought there was going to be more, but there wasn't, and that was it for the whole show. I don't know what to make of it, to be honest. It seems like the beginnings of software are there. I think E3 will be a good show for them. I'm really curious to see what Sony does on Monday, since I'm fully expecting at least half of the press conference to be dedicated to Morpheus. And then we still have the Vive from HTC and Valve, which is the other end of the spectrum. It's the high-end spectrum, whereas Morpheus looks like it's going to be the low-end spectrum, the low-cost barrier to entry. The Vive is going to be the high-end, and to me, it seems like the higher-end rig you have, that's where the cutting edge is going to happen. That's where the pushing forward of all these technologies is going to occur. not the lower end spectrums.
Well, it depends on whether the technology is actually pushed by the hardware or the software. You could easily have a groundbreaking software experience on a low-cost headset, and that could encourage further investment. I get what you're saying, and I agree to the fact that better way to present a converging image to the user or something may happen more on the high end because they're putting more resources behind it and they're going to get more money back. But that's also, because of the cost of barrier to enter, that's also going to be a lower sale item. You could probably at least 2-to-1 Morpheus to Vive. Vive, did I get that right? I always forget.
Vive, yeah.
Vive, yeah. So it's probably going to be higher than that based on the cost barrier alone and the proliferation of PS4s. Especially if they can get something at launch of the Morpheus software-wise, it's all integrated. It's kind of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's all connected.
Well,
and it's going to.
The crazy part, what you're saying, and I'm just going to translate this, is that Sony is the Apple of this group.
I would never put it that way, but I get what you're saying.
They have their walled-in garden, and yes, you can get external developers, but I mean, that it's very interesting because they're going to be the kind of the walled-in garden of this group, whereas everybody else is open and out on the internet. Oculus seems to take any Unity game and or Unreal 4 engine game and be able to magically make it 3D immediately. So that's interesting. But yeah, you're going to have to jump through some hoops to get on the Morpheus.
But just touching on the one thing where you said like Morpheus is the low end and Oculus made the other high. I know you said like innovation is mostly going to happen on the high end or the bleeding edge on the high end, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the most successful one.
Correct. I'm not saying that at all.
In the past, I mean, how many times have we seen the lesser technology take off and dominate? Actually, Sony of all people, know that won the hard way. Wow, we don't even. Videotapes are just like people don't even remember them now at this point.
So I just want to point out, I have a piece of hardware over here that is called a mini disc recorder.
Ooh, I always wanted one of those.
You have an actual recorder? Wow.
I have an actual recorder. I used it to record things off my PC and my Apple to do mixing and stuff. And you know what it really is? It's a really, really flippin' expensive version of a CD burner.
Yeah.
That's proprietary and can only be used with that.
Right, but at the time,
it was cool. That's why I bought it.
There was unskippable technology, and you could sit there and make your own mixes, and it was a lot smaller.
But I think that this is the thing that you haven't addressed, Dave, is I know that you had some comments on your overall thoughts of the conference and what they're doing.
Which ones? I was trying to be nice.
Be whatever you want to be.
I'm a little let down. When Oculus was purchased by Facebook, I know a lot of people. There was a huge kerfuffle, across the internet. Everybody was like, "This is the death of Oculus" and all this kind of stuff, and they're just gonna figure out a way to play Farmville on it, and all these crazy comments on it. Me, I took a step back and was just like, this is just nothing but Facebook getting huge and needing to start hedging their bets. They started wanting to make new investments into other stuff, and that's what companies do. They start off with one thing, and then they branch out and they make investments elsewhere. And that was Facebook's, I think, biggest entry into doing something for the future. With that, I was assuming there was just a lot of backing behind it, a lot of money, a lot of funds, and a lot of resources. I'm not sure if we're really seeing the payoff of that. I kind of expected more with the amount of resources they have available. I expected more, especially from a demo of them showing everything. I really thought there was going to be one. I thought they were already going to have like a must-have game for it, at bare minimum.
I think they do, and that's eVal.
I guess, but
that will also be on the Morpheus, so there is that.
Yeah. Like I said, like something just exclusive solely to the Rift that just.
Well, you could argue that Insomniac's game is exclusive to the Rift.
Right, but it's not ready yet. Like we don't really know the full breadth of what's going to happen there yet. I'm talking about something that's just like, this is what you're going to be able to get, day one on it, and here, you can go to some place to play it. They need to start setting up demo areas for this. They need to have like a roving truck and park it outside of Best Buys and say like, hey, try this out, and here's the game to play. Try these, try this, do this. They need to start getting it out there, and that's what Facebook resources, the money behind Facebook that they have put behind this needs to be putting behind this. They need to get this stuff out there. They need to get people really excited about it. And I was shocked that we didn't see like more of that. Maybe like a plan, like they showed off something like that, and you'll be able to check this out in 2 months. Check this website for the tour. You would think they would have had that. I mean, especially from like Zuckerberg, who's been really good at that kind of stuff, getting stuff out there. I was just shocked.
I think my biggest surprise was that, when Google did I.O. last week, a couple weeks ago, they brought up their Cardboard initiative, and they actually said, hey, you know what, we've been already beta testing this in schools, and here's the way that we're using this for education and different ways that people hadn't thought to use virtual reality before. And I expected, with Facebook behind them, they had stated that they wanted to do exactly what you had mentioned before, provide access to conferences and teleconferences and, that type of stuff, movies, shared experiences through Facebook. I was expecting to see some of that today, and all we got was gaming. And
right.
that surprised me. I know that this was preemptive of E3. I get that. But at the same time, I really thought that we would get more, that we would get a wider breadth of software.
Right, and especially since it was just an Oculus demonstration. It wasn't like Oculus Games.
Right.
That wasn't what it was called. So I agree with you there on that. Like I said, I mean, I understand why they're doing it, because that's the audience they need to target first in order just to get the stuff out there, in order to get systems in, get systems in homes. Is you got to target that crowd, because they're going to be the ones being the early adopters here. It's not going to be, your soccer moms and your families who are like ran out to buy a Wii for $200. It's a considerable investment. People aren't going to just do it, on a whim. So I get that, but it's still, like you said, would have been really cool to see what the. I mean, they're creating,
what the roadmap
they're
is.
The dreamers here. Yeah. What can we do with this? And something with Facebook, why not have a corporate strategy behind it? That makes total sense. Where you have, interactive demonstrations of stuff. I mean, this could really break wide open things where, like, say you have somebody like, an architecture firm, and they're designing a big, a mall. Okay. One of those big sprawling outside malls that is like a little town, those popular things that are propping up all over the place. Well, throw on your Oculus. Let's take you through a walkthrough of what we have planned. What do you like? What don't you like? Hey, change that. Hey, something? There's probably a tool that they can make where you change that stuff on the fly. Why am I giving them ideas right now?
Our staff is spread across the United States. We can't physically be in one room at the same time. But imagine if we had a virtual room where our avatars could all be there at the same time. We could see each other and talk as if we were talking in the same room, and I broadcast that as our show. There's so many possibilities with it, and I really thought coming into this that we were going to tackle what their roadmap was for the future, and we got instead, here's games. Mm-hmm. And if that's the extent of their strategy, I am both surprised and terrified.
Yeah.
I mean, I expect the Vive to be just games. I expect Morpheus to be just games. The Rift was the one that I expected to be Ready Player One.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, really, we're getting there at a frightening pace. I've already seen full haptic suits being touted online. I saw a thing that looks like an adult. You know how you put the toddlers in the thing that goes between their legs, and they got the circle around them, and then they can run.
Bouncy
So they've made an adult one of those, but there's no seat for you to sit in, and instead it's got a 360-degree treadmill so that you can run around in virtual space.
Yeah, I actually knew somebody that was working on something to go along with that, and they got upset because another group got in with Oculus first, and I think their idea was like the frictionless materials.
Right.
That's what they were working with. So it wasn't a treadmill; it was just all frictionless, and they could like be supported in like a thing like that, and be able to move in any direction at all times, and this thing would like sense it all. So there is a lot of cool applications as far as that go. Again, that stuff's going to need. I mean, we're talking expensive stuff, and we're talking about you need a bunch of room to be able to do this.
See, and this is the part I think that surprised me the most was with the announcement of the Microsoft partnership. While this doesn't tell us much about Oculus's strategy, it tells us everything about Microsoft's.
Mm-hmm.
They are going wholehearted into AR with their HoloLens, and if you want to play games, do it on the Rift.
Right.
So I have to wonder if that limits Oculus's. I mean, it obviously doesn't. It's a free market; they can do whatever the hell they want.
Yeah.
But in creating that partnership, I wonder if that limits what they agree to do for a set period of time.
No, I don't think so. I think it's just, I think the partnership is just like, it's like preferential treatment, at best, and access to APIs and everything that'll make like the streaming from the Xbox to through to Oculus. I mean, it makes sense for them to do that because everything's going to tie into Windows 10. Everything's going to tie into the Xbox streaming and everything. It's just a good play on their part because again, that gets the gamers.
This is my one last perception question I have from this whole thing with the Xbox One. You cannot plug the Oculus Rift into the Xbox One. You have to plug it into a Windows 10 PC.
Mm-hmm.
You plug your Xbox One into the Windows 10 PC. It does some enhancement and processing work and then streams it to the Oculus Rift. The Morpheus plugs directly into the PlayStation 4.
Mm-hmm.
Does this position Microsoft as having a weaker console?
I don't really see that so much as a weaker console. I think it's just kind of more just the design. I mean, Microsoft's not designing a VR add-on. They're tying it into Oculus. Oculus is a PC peripheral. If they, design, it wouldn't surprise me that if they do some kind of like hardware revision of the Xbox at some point, like say Oculus starts taking off, maybe they'll have like a special SKU of the Xbox that you can just plug the Rift into. I can see them doing something like that. And then that would have, that kind of planning involved. But yeah, I don't really see that as so much painting as the weaker console. It's just, it wasn't designed with that in mind. So that's the way they're going to hook it in. They want to do it through the PC. Microsoft certainly is not going to shy away from people having to buy a new Windows 10 PC.
Nope.
So that's Apple mentality there, get them in the ecosystem.
Yep.
So yeah, it just makes all sense in the world there.
Do we think we'll see Apple partner with the Vive or Morpheus?
Well, the Vive, you said that's through HTC, right?
HTC and Valve.
Yeah, the HTC part of it is where you will never see Apple work with them.
Okay.
That's a direct competitor. We know how they play well with others. They don't. And Apple probably is not concerned with VR in any way, shape, or form. They're traditionally late to the party to a lot of stuff, and they do it when it's ready. Usually.
Usually.
The watch thing's still not ready, but whatever. So we'll see if Apple's going to have their own kind of thing. We'll see them get into it, and they might even not. You know, a lot of people have said Apple was going to do such and such, Apple's going to do this, Apple's going to do that, and they still haven't.
Yep.
Everybody says there's going to be an Apple TV, they're going to release a screen. Why would they? I don't know why that rumor, is still around. But there's a lot of things they will do and won't do. I don't really see them chasing down VR so much. Maybe some new kind of interface, with their laptops and such, with their iPads. But I don't see them freaking out over VR just yet.
Well, what do you think about today's press conference by Oculus Rift? Let us know in the comments below. Also, do make sure that you stay tuned. We're going to be having coverage every night starting on Sunday night, Monday night, and Tuesday night, covering all the happenings at E3. And then Wednesday will be our big wrap-up of E3 and tackling of the rest of the week's news if there's anything that does not fall under the purview of E3. Make sure you do follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/gamersledge. Make sure you do please like and subscribe if you like this video. And of course, if you want to support us, head over to patreon.com/gamersledge and follow us on Twitter at gamersledge. For Dave, for Matt, and myself, until next time, game on.
Game on.